Hello and welcome to Ryno's Ravens review. Wow, that was a hell of a game, wasn't it? 38 points. Wow. I mean, I guess we speculated that the way this offense in particular looks, that eventually one of these days they were going to put up 38 points. Wasn't expecting this lopsided of a game. The Lions have at least previous games have had a very good offense. Let's get to some of the notes. Yeah, it was blowout. It did seem like everything was going right for the Ravens. The calls, there were a few calls that maybe you could say that an offensive lineman held a Detroit Lion. And Stanley did get flagged at least once. But for the most part, they were not throwing the flag on the Ravens. And I think for the most part, the Detroit Lions weren't getting flagged that much for holding Raven defensive linemen. But again, they did get flagged a few times as well. Maybe a few more pass interference calls depending on who you are. But like I said, everything was going right for the Ravens, including the calls. Options that, play options that that Todd Monken was coming up with, like somewhere near the end of the third quarter. That kind of little dump off to Gus Edwards. It did kind of look like it maybe was kind of an RPO. Lamar kind of rolled out to the right a little bit. Did see that it sucked the defense up towards Lamar, and Edwards got in behind everybody, so Lamar dumped it to him, and then there was nobody around Gus Edwards for 80 yards. So even Pat Ricard got himself a big gain, at least a big gain for Pat Ricard. He's not as fast as Gus Edwards, so Ricard was only able to get like 30, which still, I mean, your 300-pound fullback can get a 30-yard reception. Whew. All right, you see I am on BaltimoreRavens.com. Let's get into some of the numbers. This is a little game center stat page they have on the website. Lamar Jackson, 21 for 27 with 357 yards, 3 TD passes. Wow. And at the same time, Gus Edwards, 14 rushing attempts, 64 yards, not huge, but he did outgain Lamar Jackson. Even though Lamar Jackson only had 9 carries, Gus Edwards had 14, which is a good sign. You want that. You don't want Lamar carrying the ball more than 10 times a game. You know? I mean, it is, as they've been saying on a lot of these broadcasts, it is a business decision. Yes, he's very good at it, but you don't need some of these power runs with Lamar all the time. That's why you got him some of these other pieces. Like, say, you kept Gus Edwards around. Look, here is his one reception for 80 yards. Here's Zay Flowers with 4 catches, 75 yards. Mark Andrews on National Tight Ends Day, 4 catches, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham, 5 receptions, 49 yards. Bateman got involved, Ricard got involved. Aguilar, he only got 1 catch, but it was a touchdown. You had Mitchell and you had Justice Hill there. Now I'm going back to Odell Beckham. I think these numbers are somewhat low for Odell Beckham Jr., and I think he thinks that as well. It's late in the game. Anybody notice something different about Odell Beckham Jr.? Did it look like he was trying and fighting for extra yards after catches? Now, by all means, you want a guy to get some extra yards after catches, but did it seem like he was being overly aggressive about it? In my opinion, yes. Again, that is just my opinion. I mean, he would catch the ball and he would come back 2 or 3 yards to try to get outside the numbers maybe turn a corner. And even that one that was when they were in the red zone, that's on the broadcast, by the Fox broadcast, they said probably should have been flagged for a helmet-to-helmet hit, yes, by a wide receiver on a defender. Because looking at the replay, it did kind of look like Odell launches himself into the defender using his head at the point of attack. You certainly understand that you got a big contract and you are a big name, big time wide receiver. You certainly understand why you want more numbers. Something that Ben McDonald, and I know we're talking about the Orioles here, but Ben McDonald said a few times during the Orioles seasons, and it is somewhat cliche in sports in general, sometimes you got to try easier. Trying harder and harder and harder isn't necessarily going to help you. It may sometimes, but at the same time, sometimes you just got to try easier. Don't try as hard. But, and let me finish my opening notes, I guess. Talk about how good the Ravens offense looked, and they did look very well, but another fumble at the mesh point. Now, I mean, this just goes in a long line of games where Lamar Jackson is in the mix for a fumble. Guess it's tough to say when it's at the mesh point. Is it the running back's fault or is it the quarterback's fault? It is kind of tough to say. To a certain extent, I think most people would say it's the quarterback's fault because it's their job, to hold the ball out there for the running back, but then take it back. Maybe he's being a little too indecisive. But was with Justice Hill again? Is it something with Justice Hill and Lamar Jackson doing this little read option thing? Is that the problem? Do the two of them need to practice it more? Tough to say, but again, ball's on the ground. Again. And again, the other team gets it. That's not great. And as much as I criticize the coaching staff, I'm going to give them a good job on at least one thing here. To start the game, the coin toss. Ravens won the coin toss and elected to take the ball. Now, that usually doesn't happen often because you can kind of play with the clock at the end of the quarter and maybe have a scoring opportunity at the end of the half and then get the ball right back in the start of the third quarter. That is a strategy that a lot of teams and coaches employ. Now, this game, and maybe it wasn't Harbaugh's decision, maybe it was Monken's decision, maybe it was all their decisions. They took the ball to start out the game. The theory is there, one, you're at home, you get the crowd pumped up to see your offense, especially when you can drive the ball downfield on that first drive. And even more, you're getting the crowd into the game when you get a touchdown on that first drive. So instead of putting your defense on the field, you put your offense on the field and you take a hold of that momentum and you don't let it go. Did that aid a little bit to the victory and the blowout victory? Potentially. I mean, there's potential there because as soon as the Lions get the ball, they're already down 7 points. Who knows? All right, let's go to NFL.com. You know I liked their little stat page more. Now, again, this is somewhat concerning. You see 14 points in the first quarter, 14 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the third quarter, 3 points in the fourth quarter. Only 10 points in the second half. Now, to a certain extent, that is because you scored 28 in the first half and the Lions got nothing. And your defense was handling them. So maybe you don't press the issue too much on the offense. But I think I would have kind of liked to see more than 2 scores. Right? I mean, that's 1 touchdown and 1 field goal. Be a little different if it was 4 or 5 field goals or something. I'm not saying you got to keep pouring it on, but it would be nice that, to keep pushing the ball down the field, because then that does give, one, it gives your defense time to rest, and it doesn't allow the Lions to have good field position. Yeah, so let's say, take a look at some of these targets. Say Flowers, 4 catches, 6 targets. Andrews also with 6 targets, 4 catches. Beckham actually led in targets with 7 to get 5 catches, so he led in catches. Just not able to find the end zone. I think that having too many other guys is affecting Odell Beckham Jr. I really do. He's not, whether he's not happy with the offense or he's not happy with himself, but I think he wants more. He wants more catches. He wants more targets. And that's why I brought up the way he was playing at the end of the game. That's what I see. That's what I think when I see Odell Beckham Jr. playing like that. Now, I don't know how unhappy he is. I haven't heard anything. But to a certain extent, sometimes maybe it's just because the team is playing well. He doesn't exactly feel like he's contributing too much, maybe. I don't know. And wants to put in a lot more effort to try to get his numbers and to make it look like he is contributing. I'm not saying that he is not contributing. I'm not saying that. Bateman got a few targets. Card even got 2 targets. I was kind of surprised. I have been surprised this year to see Pat Ricard playing as much as he has. I did kind of think Isaiah Likely would get a little more looks in this realm, the fullback, second tight end opportunities. They aren't going to be as much for them. That wasn't right. There won't be as many opportunities for a fullback or a second tight end as, let's say, a 1 or 2 wide receiver or your number 1 tight end. But for the most part, it's Ricard in there and not Isaiah Likely, which is slightly odd. But it does kind of make sense because obviously Patrick Ricard is going to be the better blocker. Again, I mean, here you go. Fumble. They did give Jackson the credit for the fumble and the lost fumble, I guess, because he is a quarterback and he is in charge out there. You really got to knock that off. It was disappointing that, and a good segueing into the defense, talking about the defense. Yeah, sure, that sounds right. You know what I'm talking about. Geno Stone did get another interception. Yay, Geno Stone. But offense was not able to turn that into points, which does kind of suck. Because especially at that point in the game, the Detroit Lions were like not punting at all, and they were just going for it on 4th down. So that's why you can see over here a lot of turnover on downs. Turnover on down, interception, touchdown, turnover on down. I mean, you get that interception. You only get 6 plays. Yes, you did get a first down, but you only get 10 yards. It's not great. But again, at that point, the game was kind of out of hand. The Ravens had it sealed up almost. I mean, yeah, they've blown double-digit leads before, but this was like a 30-point lead. It wasn't going to happen. So with all the throwing, you got a lot of interception here by Geno Stone. Pass defended by Humphrey, Roquan Smith, 2 by Stevens, and 1 by Rock Ya-Sin. Talking about the defense. Defense was getting pressure on Jared Goff a lot. Arthur Millette, another sack. Getting that blitz, it is kind of odd to see that. How some of these, especially defensive backs like, say, a Millette or a Hamilton in his big sack game, you're getting these guys in there untouched. Part of that is the speed factor. Part of that is, if they're lined up across a slot receiver, you don't really know if they're going to blitz or not. It is kind of hard to tell sometimes. But good on Arthur Millette getting in there again. Hamilton in there, didn't get thrown out of this game, hasn't been suspended yet, so don't know. Matabike with a sack. Adafe Owe, he's back. He got a sack. Oh, and I missed this part. Ravens were able to force 2 fumbles, but again, you see this 0 in the reception column or recover column. We're not able to fall on any of the fumbles in this game, which sucks. But Matabike and Owe with forced fumbles. As I said, Owe gets credit with a sack as well. Kyle Van Noy, 2 sacks, fitting in very nicely for this defense. That was off. Here we go. That's looking at my notes still. You look at the sack numbers and you say, well, that's not really a lot of sacks. No, it's not, because Jared Goff, and I don't know, I guess I got to look up the rule book. I don't really understand a lot of this stuff about when a quarterback will be flagged for intentional grounding and when he won't. But there were a lot of times, I want to say at least three, maybe 4 times, where Jared Goff, under pressure in the pocket, and he just kind of spikes the ball into the ground behind the line of scrimmage. And it's like, really? Why is that allowed? I don't understand how that's allowed. Oh, I got a defender hanging all over me. Let me just toss it into the ground. What? Huh? That's bullshit is what that is. Bullshit. I don't care who's near him. I don't care if it's 50 defenders and nobody from his team. You don't just get to be, we're just going to spike it. Oh, well, I had another guy over here. I don't care if you had a running back or a tight end in there. That's bullshit. Defenders got to play too. If you want to do that, fine. Just toss it and we'll just call it a sack. I mean, what the hell kind of bullshit is that? Now, he did get flagged for it. I feel like he got flagged for doing that one time, and then he did it another time, and he didn't get flagged for it. So I guess really what I don't understand is the inconsistency. I feel like both times he did it, there was a skill position player somewhat, I would almost even say, inside the pocket with him. So was it because the one, he had a very deep drop and the guy was maybe 6 yards away from him when he spiked it? Or maybe even, I honestly think, I thought the running back was only like 2 or 3 yards away from where the ball ended up landing. So I don't know why they called it on that play, but then on the other play, he's got defenders all around him, and yes, there is a tight end back there blocking, and then he spikes it, and he didn't get a flag. It's like, what's going on there? So maybe there was an instance where, again, like I said in the beginning, and coming full circle, wrapping it up, things just went the Ravens' way. Maybe they weren't supposed to get flagged. Maybe Goff was not supposed to get flagged for intentional grounding because there is somebody else in there with a pocket with him. But again, things went the Ravens' way, and all the things went all the Ravens' way. Sometimes that is just how it has to go. And again, let's wrap this up. Huge win for the Baltimore Ravens. Put 38 points in their game in which they hosted the Detroit Lions at M&T Bank Stadium. Very good performance coming off the London game. So very tricky travel situation here. And let's look at the schedule coming up. I will do a Ravens preview show Saturday. And then for Sunday, Ravens will be traveling to Arizona, playing the Arizona Cardinals. This game will be at 4:25 our time. I guess that's about 1:30 their time. Or maybe it's 2:30. Whatever. Talking about that two different. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm the Angry Ryno. Fly, Ravens, fly.